My name is Just a Fan, and I'm here today to talk about some movie, but nobody knows what that movie's going to be yet. That's because we're doing our whole draw from a hat thing here, and if you don't know what's going on, I'll try to make it as easy as possible by putting all the previous videos in this whole sequence down in the video description. And so the very first one has me describing what's going on here. You can even watch me, I think, write down the movie titles and cut them up and put them in the hat here. Now, we're down to 2 movies left, so this, if we started with 7, this must be video number 6 in the sequence. And on the topic of the movies, they're all movies that I've seen tons of times, movies that I really enjoy and generally just recommend to anybody because I think they're really great, and also movies that I feel confident enough to talk about on the fly because that's what this whole thing is. I'm drawing one from a hat to talk about. I have no idea what's going to happen here, and I haven't for the previous 5 videos either. And on the note of the videos, or the movies as well, what I'll do is put the list of movies that have been in the hat down below, as well as the ones that are still in the hat, and I'll also do that on screen here right now. So you'll see 7 titles. The top 5 are in order the ones we pulled, and the bottom 2, of course, the ones that are left over, which are the 1985 movie Clue, which I love, and then also the 2000... yeah, I think 2000 movie Galaxy Quest here. So that's what's left in the hat. Is there anything else I need to say? Also, I always do a non-spoiler talk about the movie first. Whatever movie we pull, it'll be non-spoilers first, just in case someone doesn't want the movie spoiled for them. Especially when we don't know what's going to get pulled here. It can be kind of scary, being like, are they going to spoil a movie? I don't even know what it's going to be. Luckily, I will announce very clearly that, hey, now it's spoiler time. If you want to avoid spoilers, you can turn off this review for now, come back to it later, that type of thing. Now I think I've said everything I have to say, so let's get started. For the record, 1, 2 in the hat, and we're going to shuffle these 2 movies around and draw one up. I can't wait for the next one where I have 1 left to shuffle around. It's going to be really nerve-wracking trying to figure out what movie we're going to talk about for that one. And so I think I got one here. Good. And the fun part is, well, hopefully it's all fun, but the fun part right now is I'm not even going to look at it. I'm going to show it to the audience first, and then it might be upside down, so just in case it's upside down, I'm going to flip it over, and oops. And now I get to look at it. Galaxy Quest, yes. Great movie, Galaxy Quest. So I'm going to talk about Galaxy Quest for a little while without spoilers and how great it is. And then I'll talk about Galaxy Quest with spoilers and how great it is. Here we go. This movie is awesome, and I can't believe how many people out there don't seem to have heard of it or haven't seen it. This happens sometimes. A movie will come out and someone will say, hey, that was pretty good, but no one else really seems to think so. And after a while, maybe it'll pick up some steam, or people will realize, hey, that was actually really great. So, like, that happens. I don't know if that's what's happening here with Galaxy Quest. It is 19 years old, but I've just never seen anybody ever talk about it. And again, I don't read from every movie review website. I don't watch every movie review video, but I haven't even seen so much as a reference to this movie. I've even seen references to the movie Clue. I haven't seen a full review of it, but still, it's like, man, like, why is Galaxy Quest so seemingly unheard of? So hopefully this will give it a little bit of light here, and hopefully anybody else who has seen it can chip in and say, yeah, this movie is as good as Just a Fan is saying. And I gotta say, just look at the lineup here. You got Tim Allen in this movie. You got Alan Rickman in this movie. He is fantastic. You got Sigourney Weaver. Of course, if it's a movie with aliens, it has to have Sigourney Weaver in it. And yes, apologize if that seems like a spoiler, but it's called Galaxy Quest. It has space. It has aliens. It's just a great comedy satire movie. By the way, there's more actors in here too. I forgot to mention. You also get people like Tony Shalhoub, remember the guy who played Monk, and the guy who was Jack Jeeves in Men in Black. And Sam Rockwell's in this. He plays a great character. And one of the aliens is played by Rainn Wilson, who's Dwight Schrute from The Office. Great lineup of actors here, and they do such a good job of making this really funny. But also, and that's the cool thing about this movie too, it's so high quality. It can go from very funny and having a great fun sarcastic tone, but also to like a more emotional tone where it's like, wow, I kind of, like, you know, I'm feeling kind of heavy with this. It's getting kind of sad, and it's very emotional for a bit here. And that to me is a sign of a good movie. Not necessarily that every good movie does this, and some movies can't do this. Some movies can't have a scene where, you know, the tone shifts so dramatically to something else. It can throw the viewer off and make you feel like the, you know, director and creators didn't know what they were doing. But here, every single scene is so well structured, and feels like, you know, the whole time they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and I always respect a movie where they, you know, kind of has that sense. They knew what they wanted to do, and the movie knows what it wants to be. This movie, I gotta say, before any other detail, I just want to point out, this is one of the most high-quality comedies I've probably ever seen in my entire life. I might even call it my favorite comedy, or at least movie that is so primarily a comedy. A movie like, you know, Clue has some funny moments in it, but it's not even necessarily a comedy movie, so to speak. This one for sure is like a comedy satire movie, and probably my favorite one of all time. Now, I've never seen an episode of Star Trek in my entire life, I don't think. I've seen 2 of the movies, or I guess 3 of the movies, including kind of like the remakey thing they did at some point a few years back. And I even met 2 of the actors once, just to say I did. But if you're not sure, this movie kind of mimics a lot of what Star Trek does. In Star Trek, they have the Enterprise, is that what it's called? The Starship Enterprise. And here they have the NSEA Protector. It's like the National Space Exploration Association. Something goofy like that. And so, for the record, I do want to say that it does mimic a lot of what Star Trek does in terms of, here's kind of the premise, here's the setup, here's who the characters are. These very recognizable characters, Captain this, and Lieutenant this, and First Mate this, and, whatever this. And that's kind of just their premise. But I do want to say, just because it's similar, or kind of takes the style of Star Trek, Galaxy Quest does do its own unique thing here, where they kind of take their own spin on, we have actors on a TV show a sci-fi TV show that people love, and what they do with it is very unique and very cool, and it has a lot of great, room and potential for character, and that's the thing, right off the bat, you meet all the characters in a nice, very easy way, and in an entertaining way, too. So Tim Allen on the front here, he's kind of the commander of a TV show, of a crew, in a TV show just like Star Trek in the movie. So in this movie, Galaxy Quest is like a Star Trek type TV show, and he has a whole crew of, people like Alan Rickman, he's Dr. Lazarus, and then Lieutenant Madison, that's Sigourney Weaver. There's a couple other characters too, but the point is, there's all kinds of great stuff in here where it's like, these are the characters, here's who they are, they're, portrayed really well by these great actors, and by the end of the movie, every single character has an arc, and it's like, dang, that was really well done, because there's some movies that can barely handle an arc with one character, and we have, I guess, how big is the crew? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With a crew of 6, well, Sam Rockwell, he's crewman number 3, or whatever he is, but, they all have an arc, even he has an arc, even as a not main character, and that's the thing, they're having so much fun in this movie with the idea of character, and sci-fi, and how a story should go, and how a TV show gets made. It's so well done, and every single character, like I've been saying, has an arc, and they change by the end of the movie, and it makes sense how they change, and it's very clearly shown how they change, and exactly what you need to see as a viewer, and what they needed to do as movie creators. It's so good. I keep just saying it's so good, but it really is. And so you do meet the characters right off the bat. You kind of learn about their personalities. For instance, Tim Allen's character, the captain, he's so arrogant. He's so full of himself, and they have a lot of great scenes to help establish that, both where they show how he acts to be arrogant, and also how people react to him being arrogant. And it's a really good way to get your kind of, nail your character and say, that's who he is, very well defined. Probably one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my entire life in a movie is by Alan Rickman here. He is so sick of being Dr. Lazarus. I mean, the way they portray that is incredibly well done, and it's so funny watching him be so miserable. The movie, sorry, it is a show in the movie, but the movie starts at a convention, a Galaxy Quest convention, and it has the actors coming out to, meet some fans and, give a speech or whatever, and he's just so miserable the whole time, and it's so funny watching that happen. The way he does it is incredible. So again, very well-defined characters, right? So it's a great way to start a movie. It's a great way to, to have your beginning and have your end and have your middle, your character. It's a really good 3-act play. I mean, you have your first act where they set everything up and they kind of go on the adventure. The second act is where they go through some struggles and they have to overcome that. And the third act is where they overcome that. It's just, the structure is so perfect and it's so there. So as the movie goes on, after the introduction, where they, define these characters very well, they also very well define the context of the characters and the TV show they're actors for in this world here. So like the Galaxy Quest convention, you have fans coming up to the actors and asking them questions and saying things to them. It's a really great way to, define the context of the movie. Like, here's who the actors are, here's who their characters are, here's how they've been responded to and how they get responded to in the world. It's great. It's very satisfying knowing that everything is so well defined and there's no questions. It's not like, who is that character and what are they about, like why are they doing what they're doing. It's so great. Even the villain too, there's a villain in this movie, and I guess with sci-fi, of course, you gotta have a sci-fi villain, but even with a comedy, it's kind of, almost rare, I guess I would say, or uncommon to have such a well-defined villain, because usually comedy doesn't, warrant a villain as we have in this movie here in Galaxy Quest, but we do, and his motivations are perfectly clear. We know exactly what he wants. We know exactly how he treats his, his own lieutenant and his henchmen. We know exactly how he treats, the good guys, so to speak, the protagonist. It's so well defined and it's very satisfying. Satisfying is really the word I would use to describe this movie. It feels so good by the end of the movie, having understood everything happening, haven't been able to laugh at it all, haven't been able to appreciate all the acting for it. It's such a satisfying movie. And so The characters, they're at the convention. They kind of, there's the difference. There's the commander. I was almost going to say captain, but he's the commander. Commander Taggart. He's Tim Allen, and he's so arrogant. And you have the rest of the crew, and there's a lot of differences between them in terms of how they feel about him and how he feels about himself. And so eventually they kind of come to the point, without spoilers, they come to the point where they have to start kind of working together in ways they never thought they had to work together before. And that's really cool because you have your arrogant commander guy who doesn't even almost understand completely or appreciate completely the situation that they're in, and the other characters, the other actors do. So it's like, oh gosh, like until you realize what's going on here, and it's some good stuff where you kind of have some innocence there. You have the commander who's almost too innocent for his own good, and then when the whole crew has to come together and they realize, oh my gosh, we have a serious problem here, and they have to start working to overcome that, and they have to go through their hardships. It's just, again, so well structured there. And so, again, by the end of the movie, when they have their character arcs, it all comes around full circle very, very well. I don't want to get too spoilery, but there's some things that happen kind of very intentionally where the characters have some moments where they're kind of unsure. They're unsure, is this what I need to do, or is this what I do? Is this who my character is? Is this what has to happen? And then later in the movie, kind of near the climax, it's like, I know what I'm doing right here. Is this what we're doing? Yep, I'm doing that. It's like, it's so perfectly well fleshed out because it's like, that's who they were, that's who they are. It's the same character in the same context and the same type of situation, but they kind of have really learned what to do. It's awesome. This movie's so good. I really gotta say, Galaxy Quest, especially now that I'm thinking about it, is one of the best made movies I've probably ever personally seen, and I hope other people feel the same way as I do about it. Other things. What are some other things I can say without spoilers, just generally about this movie, because, we should finish up the non-spoiler section here soon. I would say it looks great. I mean, to me, it's a 2000 movie. I think the special effects look nice. Obviously, if it's a sci-fi movie, it's going to have to some degree, it'll have some special effects in there. The villain is, I think, a practical effect or a practical costume type of thing. He looks really awesome. And also, his alien, all the aliens. There's not actually... For a sci-fi movie like this, it's surprising how few aliens there are. It's not a movie like Star Wars where they go to the Mos Eisley Cantina, there's aliens everywhere, and it's trying to show, like, this is how big the galaxy is, look how many species of aliens there are all over the place. It's not really that type of movie. It's more of a type of, these are the species of aliens that are important to this story. This is what they look like. This is what they look like when they have their image, whatever they call image, something that shows, a humanoid form rather than their alien form, stuff like that. And that's fine. I think it all looks pretty good, especially at some of the scenes where it's kind of, you're supposed to say, oh gosh, those kinds of moments where it's supposed to make you kind of react. I think I react legitimately well to those scenes. The music's great. I actually really love the music in this movie. I don't know who did it. It kind of sounds like, one of those classic people who've, done music before. I don't see a name on here that's striking me as... Oh, it looks like Stan Winston did the makeup and effects. There you go. That's the guy who did Predator, which was awesome. Yeah, I don't see, very obviously here who did the music, but the music is great. It's kind of one of those things where it's just like, it just fits very well. When they're kind of, doing sci-fi things, it's kind of, sci-fi adventure type of music. And it's not like, again, it's not like they just stole the same type of music from Star Trek or something like that, just, rehashed that or remixed it. It's its own music, and that's nice. It's still fresh. That's the cool thing about it. They take a lot of, and here's the fun part about the movie. There's so many stereotypes and classic things and, things we've all seen before, and it's very aware of that. It's like, this is the character that does this, or this is the character that's not important enough to have a last name. It's so self-aware and trying to make the viewer realize it's so self-aware. And so one of the things it does, it uses its own fresh take on what we all kind of know, but in its own way, and it still feels kind of new still, and like a really good rendition of these stereotypes we've seen before. It's so awesome. And I think that's probably a good place. I talked about music, effects, acting, funny, very funny. I still laugh at it. There's jokes I know are coming, and I'll still laugh at it every single time. This thing right here, NBC TV calls the funniest, wittiest comedy of the year. I mean, that says it right there. I don't know if there's much else I should say that are non-spoilers. Hopefully I got everything that seems important. If you have questions about it, before you watch the spoiler section of this video or any other video, feel free to ask questions. You can always email contactjustafan@gmail.com or make a comment on here. Comments are a scary place for spoilers, though. If you haven't seen the movie and don't want it spoiled, comments, be wary of that. But if you're kind of, curious about this movie, I'd love to answer a question or tell someone else more about it if they want to hear it. But at least in context of this video, I think I want to start talking about spoiler stuff now too. So please feel free to, skip this or pause it, come back to it later, or again, go back to anybody else's review of this. I've never seen another review of it. Maybe there's lots of great reviews out there that describe the movie better than I do. But at least for me, now it's my turn to talk about the movie with full reign and spoilers. if you're watching this, you've clearly seen the movie Galaxy Quest before. You're not going to spoil it for yourself, and now we can talk about it without worrying about spoilers. And there's probably so much I could say. I mean, it's such a blast. It's so much fun to watch this movie. I don't even know where to start with spoiler stuff, other than just saying once again how much I appreciate it and all the moments the characters have. I guess I could be more specific about the moments the characters do have together. I love Alan Rickman and Tim Allen, which I just realized have Alan in both of their names, even though it's spelled differently. I seriously never noticed that. But I love the scene, like, where they're on the alien planet, they need to get a beryllium sphere and to bring it back to the ship and repair it, and there's all the creepy little alien creatures out there, the miners, not miners, haha. There's those creatures, and so Alan Rickman's on the shuttle ship thing that they're going to fly back to the bigger ship, and he's like, you go ahead, you go first, and Tim Allen's like, no, you go, and he has to even punch Alan Rickman to get him to, like, stop arguing and get him into the ship, and he kind of falls out. He's trying to be the hero, of course, which again plays along with, that's something I should mention in the spoiler section, how much they play with the concept of the hero and the story and all that stuff. I'll get to that in a moment. But I love how Sigourney Weaver's character's like, no, Jason, no, we can't leave him on an alien planet, and how Alan Rickman's like, oh, right, it was always about you, isn't it? Like, that's his reaction to him getting left on an alien planet. It's so much fun watching those characters interact together. And again, later, when they all get captured by Ceres's henchmen or whatever, and he's like, release them into space, and so they're gonna release them into space, and the way they get out of being captured is Tim Allen and Alan Rickman start fighting together, like they pretend to fight together. I love how it's just like, it's about time you backed off, you fin-headed monstrosity, and he's like, oh, right, well, how's it feel, Jason? You've murdered us all. It's this great interaction of characters. It's so believable, and it seems so genuine, and it's so well portrayed by the characters, and of course they use that to start fighting, kind of, get the upper hand on the actual bad evil henchman guys from Ceres. It's so much fun. Stuff like that is really great. And I really love the commentary that this movie kind of has on, TV shows or sci-fi shows in particular. There's some great stuff, like when they have to get to the, like, Ceres's henchmen, they set the protector to blow itself up. It's like self-destruct is on or whatever. And so they have to get to the manual self-destruct shut-off thing, and they have to go through all these tunnels and drop down this thing and do all this crazy stuff, and they have to go to the chompers, and it's like chomp, 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 chomp. And Sigourney Weaver's like, why is this here? What is going on here? There's no reason for this to exist, which is perfectly true. And Tim Allen's like, it's because it's on the television show. And it's like, that's true. They have to make things in TV more dramatic and stuff like that. And I don't think they're saying that's a bad thing. It's just hilarious how they're taking that so far enough to make it where, like, literally the Thermians, they saw that on the historical documents, which I love how they call them historical documents, and they put it in the real ship because it's on the show, which I think is real. Such great commentary on how things are done, and it's so much more fun for the characters to have to deal with stuff like that. And I love, too, on that same note, how they finally get to the core, manual shut-off room or whatever, and they push the button down, but the timer keeps going, and it's like, what did we do wrong? What do we do? Why is it still going? And it stops at 1, and Sigourney Weaver's like, oh, of course, it always stops at 1 in the show. It's, like, brilliant, because it's true that that type of thing tends to happen so often. It's just great. I love that stuff. On the topic of the historical documents, that's also a fun thing that also brings a lot of emotion into the movie, too, because eventually, at first you're laughing. At first it's like, here's our ship because we designed it based on watching your guys' TV show on the historical documents, but they don't realize it's a TV show. They think it's all real, to the point where, like how Sigourney Weaver says, surely you don't think Gilligan's Island is real, and this, those poor people. It's like, it's so funny, and that's, of course, Alan Rickman, rolls his eyes and is like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know what to say to this. It's great stuff, and so they use that again later where they think it's so real, and that part where Ceres kind of invades the Protector's ship and his crew's in there, and they've captured Mathazar, and they're, like, torturing him, like, shocking him or whatever, doing something to him, and it's like, explain to Mathazar who you guys really are, because when he sees the historical documents, because Tim Allen's trying to say, I'm not the commander, I'm not a space guy. Like, this is not what you're thinking at all. And so Ceres figures it out. He gets it. Whether or not he has theater on his own planet or not, he kind of gets it. And so having him make Tim Allen explain to Mathazar who they really are, and watching the reaction of Mathazar, even more importantly, watching Tim Allen have to do that, it's really good acting. First of all, in my opinion, it's really good acting. Watching him have to say, like, we're not who you think we are. We're not heroes. I'm not Peter Quincy Taggart. I'm not Commander Taggart. And our beryllium sphere is this, and our digital conveyor is Christmas tree lights, and our big ship is this big, and those are all plywood sets. It's like, wow, like, having to explain all that to someone who's based their entire civilization, not just someone, but a whole race of people who have based their entire civilization realization of what they've seen in your TV show, and having so much hope from that. And that's the thing too. They have a lot of good pieces in there too, where he says, your adversaries and adventures and things like that. All these things we've watched you do in the historical documents. Watching them talk about how, like, you have saved our people. Like, you've turned us around. We've learned how to fend for ourselves. We've learned how to do this and that. And you're our heroes. You're like legends to us. And so having those little pieces put in there, both for kind of plot, but also for future payoff with this kind of thing, having to have to break all that down and say that's not true at all. Like, that's not any of us at all. That's a really powerful emotional moment. I think it plays out really well in this movie. And of course, that this is Act 2. You kind of where your characters are at their low point, and in the Act 3 they kind of work together and really overcome everything. And that's where you see that huge difference. Where in the first act of the movie, you have Sam Rockwell. I haven't mentioned Sam Rockwell much in this movie yet. That's where you have Sam Rockwell sitting at that chair. He's like, "Hey guys, there's a red thingy coming toward the green thingy. I think we're the green thingy," and that they have that great thing there. And then later in the movie, it's kind of played off pretty quickly. But if you notice, he says something like, "This is where they're going into the minefield again. They want to drag all the mines to blow up Sarah's ship." And he says, "We're getting hammered, Jason. Return fire." Like, he went from there's a red thingy going to the green thingy to return fire. Like, I know how to return fire now, or something like that. It's great stuff where you can clearly see how the characters have changed. One thing that's kind of also funny, more commentary here too, in terms of characters changing. Sigourney Weaver's character, I love how on the original show, her only job is to repeat what the computer says, and she can talk with the computer, like the system and the protector. And it's great how she hates it. I love that scene. It's so good. Where the ship gets damaged like crazy, and they go through the minefield the first time, and they get all kinds of damage, and that's where they find out they have to get a beryllium sphere. I love that scene where he's like, "What about the engines? Do we have power?" And she's like, "Computer, do we have power? What about the engines?" And it repeats, or it gives her the answer, and she has to repeat everything that it says. And so Tommy, the Lieutenant Laredo, great name, Laredo, he's pretty fun in this movie too. Like, it was like, that is really getting annoying, and I love her reaction of, "Look, I have one job on this lousy ship. It's stupid, but I'm gonna do it, okay?" Like, I love that aspect of her character, and I love that thing where she what is it? The enemy starts matching velocity. She says, "Enemy is matching velocity," and she even says, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm repeating the darn computer." It's like, it's so perfect, and I think it's the commentary piece there. I think is on women in TV, that type of thing, especially in older shows. I mean, Star Trek is kind of an old show, the original Star Trek, and there, it was groundbreaking when Nichelle Nichols. I met her. She's one of the actresses I met from the show. It was groundbreaking to have a actress who was black but play a not stereotypical role on TV. She was like the first one to ever do that, so that was kind of groundbreaking at the time. And so this may be some commentary just on how women are portrayed in the media, and there is a serious problem here. I also like at the beginning of the movie when they're first introducing the characters, they're first introducing the crew, and Sigourney Weaver's talking about how her TV Guide interview was not about her as a character. Nobody bothered to ask her what she did on the show. It was all about the fact that she was a woman and very attractive. And it's like, wow, that's some scarily relatable stuff to reality here. And I'm glad that they kind of have, that's not like a main part of the movie, that kind of commentary, but I'm glad it's there, because clearly the creators of this movie get it. They get it. They know what's going on here. They know what's going on in their movie. They know how to base it off of reality, and how the viewer can see the connections and kind of the correlations between reality and the movie here. So it's again, it's another thing where it's like they get it. They really, really get it, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they did stuff like that in the movie. I sort of started mentioning this earlier. I'm going all over the place here, but on the topic of characters and character arcs, I like how Alan Rickman's character goes from being completely miserable with his character, and he doesn't want to say the line anymore, and all this great stuff like that, to eventually when there's the Thermian named Quaylick, and he ends up getting shot by one of Sarah's henchmen. And of course, he's had a few interactions with Alan Rickman's character, where he's like, I've always considered you a role model to me, or a father to me, and I live my life by the code of the Mokhtar. And it's great how we don't even need to know. We, as the viewer of the movie, we don't even need to know what the code of the Mokhtar is. We just know that that's the kind of influence that this show has had on both the Thermians through the historical documents, and to people on Earth too. So great stuff like that anyway. But then he gets shot, and so then Alan Rickman legitimately says his line of by Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged, or I shall avenge you, one of those two. And it's just great because he means it. And it's like we can see that he means it, and we can feel him warming up to this situation, to the aliens, to the Thermians, to the ship, to his own character. We like that. And then by the end of the movie, kind of near the end, I think after the first time they kill Saris, because you have to kill the bad guy twice in a movie like this, always. You have that scene where they're kind of just talking about, like, hey, that was great, and, hey, and, I think Tim Allen's character says, Mathazar, I think your people have a great commander. And I think that's when Alan Rickman even, like, smiles at him, and it's like, wow, that smile. They are very specifically show Alan Rickman smiling at Mathazar, kind of smiling at the Thermians, and it's like, that was very intentional to show his character has really, really changed here. And I'm not saying it's the first time he smiled in the whole movie, although I wonder if it is the first time he smiles in the whole movie. But it's great because it's like, he came full circle. It's so fleshed out. It's so there, and he's been so warmed up to these people in this situation. We can feel that as the viewers. Good stuff like that too. I feel like I could talk for hours about everything I like about this movie. I should probably try to bring it to a close here at some point soon. I'm trying to think of anything else I need to say. I talked about all kinds of details. Dialogue I love. I keep saying how great it is. The music is great. The aliens look awesome. The aliens are, actors are great. All the acting's awesome. There's so much about it that's great that I think I hit. I haven't talked about the very, very end and the very, very beginning, but I think these are important pieces of the movie. Because at the beginning, the very intro to the movie is kind of this is Galaxy Quest time, and they have kind of the theme song playing, and they kind of have the intro to the Galaxy Quest TV show within the movie itself, but it's very reminiscent of real sci-fi TV shows and how they, have the characters doing things, and they'll maybe look at the camera and they'll, like, show the name and text or whatever. Very, very, again, probably some commentary, not necessarily negative commentary, but just commentary on, this is how things are done very often for sci-fi TV shows. And so by the end of the movie, we see the same thing. It's the same type of thing, but now it's like the new adventures of the Galaxy Quest crew and stuff like that. And there's, like, good music playing. It's kind of upbeat. It kind of looks like a nicer resolution, a little higher quality. Tim Allen lost his mullet, which I love the moment where he kind of, like, does, like, a hair thing there during the first intro. That's really funny. But it's important because it comes around full circle. It shows the original intro to the show, and now it's the new intro to the show. But most importantly to the viewer, it kind of shows us that the characters, they figured it out. They got it. They figured out how to be a team again. They know how to inspire millions again. They kind of get it, and they figured it out. They ended up in the right place that we wanted to see them in. And it's interesting because they didn't really have to do that. The movie could have ended, when the NSEA Protector crashes back onto Earth, they separate from the Thermians, and it crashes back on Earth. And by the way, I like how it just completely smashes into the wall of the convention center, hopefully not killing millions of people or hundreds of people. But it could have ended there because, they come out of the ship and everyone's clapping for them. And that's where they reveal, of course, that Tim Allen has learned to not just, be the only one bowing and the only one who wants to make a speech, but he's like, come on, guys, come on, this is for us all. Like, let's all get up here and all take a bow. That's, of course, an important character moment there. That could have been the end, though. It could have ended and zoomed out with them bowing and getting clapped for and, zoomed out or whatever, fade to black. But they didn't end there. They chose to extend it just a tad more by showing the new adventures of the Galaxy Quest TV show, and that's a cool little detail there. I like how, not only that it comes full circle, but it really shows where the characters ended up. It's really cool. So I like that detail of it. I don't know if there's so much more I could say, but I think I'm going to try to end this whole thing here. Thank you, Galaxy Quest. You are so amazing. This DVD case says funny right here, but I think it's a lot more than funny. There's a lot more to it. The emotion is there. The characters are there. It's more than just funny. It's awesome. Thank you very much for watching this review. I hope it was as much fun for you as it was for me. I love talking about this movie and thinking about this movie, so I'm glad to finally get a review out there. Hopefully I can watch another Galaxy Quest review and see if others appreciate the same things I appreciate about it, or agree with most of the things I agree about, or disagree. I'm really curious. I might now very specifically seek out Galaxy Quest review and see what I can find. Now, for me, in terms of this sequence of reviews, I have one more to do. I'll get the hat over here. So next time we need to draw from, we have to draw a movie of one, and I guess it's going to be Clue, but we don't know that yet because nobody knows what's going to be reviewed. So we'll find out next time in this sequence what's going to be reviewed. Again, if you have a question or want to say something or give any suggestions, which I'm sure there's lots of because this is not a perfect channel, feel free to email contactjustafan@gmail.com. And also, the cool news is there's a new Twitter account for this whole review channel. If you want to go to, I don't know if is it at? I don't know how to use Twitter. This is the first time I've used Twitter, like, ever. But it's not the pound sign thing. It's where you say at. That's who you are. I am at JustAFanReviews, and I'll put a link in the description for that, and as well as the video here. Now I'll put up my Twitter handle. What do you call it? I don't even know. I need to learn how to use Twitter. But on Twitter, I have, these are some upcoming things I want to do. Here's some extra comments about something I forgot to mention. Stuff like that. So you can go to Twitter and get links to videos that I do, or, anything else on there that I can't fit into a video, or I want to kind of reiterate from a video, that kind of stuff. So feel free to go to that Twitter. And is that it? I think that's it. So thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. As long as you're having fun here, that's the whole important thing to me. Thanks very much again for watching.